himself. He may do something good. He may do something helpful, but at the end, he's doing it for himself. He's going to get something back, he thinks. He's going to get uh, something from it. Over in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 and 8, it says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to the flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting." If that person sows to the flesh all the time, he's going to reap the flesh. He's going to reap corruption. He's going to reap everlasting punishment in hell. And they don't realize that. They don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. You can't talk with them. And if you're out on visitation and stuff, sometimes they slam the door in your face because they don't want to hear. They know what you're saying is true, but yet they don't want to hear it. Then the next one there in verse 13, he talks about, "And they shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to ride in the daytime, spots they are and blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceiving while they feast with you." And that be there as spots and blemishes. They're a blemish in the church. They're a spot in the church. Now, I didn't used to, but now when I go out to eat a lot of times, I about need a bib because I'm dribble stuff on my shirt or on my tie, something or other. And that's a spot, a blemish. You don't want it there. And that's what these people in the church are. They're a spot and a blemish in the church. And if they show their true colors, which they eventually will, even though they're wolves in sheep clothing, it brings a accusation against the church. It makes the church look like you got a spot on your tie. You see the commercial talking about, I think it was Mako or something other that does paints and fixes dents on cars. If you got a dent in your car, that's the only thing you see when you walk up to it. You look at that one little spot that's on your door or where it is, and that's the only thing you see. You don't see the bugs on the front and the stuff on the windshield and stuff like that. You see that dent there because it's a spot, something you shouldn't be there. And that's the way these people are in our churches. They're spots and they're blemishes. Their verse, it says they sporting themselves with their own deceiving while they feast with you. He's talking about the Lord's Supper, or talking about the communions, or the church social things you would have of people. And Paul makes mention of it over in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. They go there to satisfy themselves, to eat, to drink, where nobody else has got. So somebody else wasn't able to have. They brought everybody brings everything, and everybody eats their own stuff. Here was not able to bring much, and he goes away hungry. Paul says that's not right over in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Let's go by right fast and read that. 1 Corinthians 11, verse 20 and 22. "When you come together, therefore, in one place, this is not to eat the Lord's Supper, for in eating everyone taketh before others his own supper, and one is hungry and another is drunken. What? Have you not houses to eat and drink in? And despise you the church of God? Shame then to have not. What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you in this? I praise you not. So Peter is talking about basically the same thing here. They used to, uh, uh, Moravians still have the love feast things. But the Baptist people used to have stuff like this probably, but basically it's all come down to now because the people have made such a sham of it. We have the Lord's Supper, and that's it. It's to honor his his death and burial and resurrection by drinking the juice and eating the bread. And Peter's saying that there, and well as Paul there, I read in 1 Corinthians, they're cause a spot on the church. They call blemishes on the church for the way they act and what they do. Then in verse 14 it says, cursed children. These people in verse 14 it says, having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin. In other words, they're going to act like animals as far as their sexual preference in life. The men's going to be looking for the women. The women's going to be looking for the men. And we have that in churches. But that should not be. God put us here. Once we're saved, we control ourselves. We feed ourselves spiritually and able to do this. But Peter's saying here, their eyes is full of adultery. And they cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls. In other words, I watched, they've incorporated, they brought back in a lot of the wolves and things at predator. You can't tell